This channel is about exploring the world of audio and other related tech, basically whatever I'm interested in, and mostly that seems to be headphones. I've not yet done any content on source gear, partly because I'm actually quite happy with the source gear that I currently have, but also because reviewing source gear is a lot more difficult than reviewing headphones. Burson Audio reached out to me to see if I wanted to check out some of their gear, and at first talked about sending me one of their entry-level DAC amps. However, they ended up sending me something a little bit more high-end. This is the Burson Audio Conductor 3XP or 3X Performance, which is an amp, preamp and a DAC combo with both balanced and single-ended outputs. This is certainly a step up from my O2 amp, so what kind of experience does high-end audio equipment bring? Well, let's get into it. Hey guys, this is Noel and this is Wheezy Reviews. Each week I take a look at something audio related and let you know what I think of it. So if you're into that kind of thing, then make sure you subscribe. Now this is going to be a long video. You know how I go in for those long detailed reviews. There's going to be timestamps in the description if you want to skip around. So full disclosure, as I mentioned in the intro, Burson did send this over to me on loan for my honest review, and as always, whether I purchase something myself or I get sent a review unit, I'm always going to give you my honest take on them. First up then, let's just take a look in the box. Obviously you get the Conductor 3XP itself. You're also getting a remote control. This one's made entirely of aluminium. It's quite nice. There's a power supply, a rather nice RCA cable, a USB-C cable, 4 replacement op amps, a TRRS splitter, also an OTA adapter, that's a USB-C to USB-A, a Allen key for opening up the chassis, and also it seems like they've supplied a replacement surface mount, looks like a resistor. Oh, and finally there is the Bluetooth antenna, and I'll show you that shortly. Before we go any further, I'm going to go over a few key specs. If you want the full list of specifications, you can check out the link in the description. Output impedance is just 0.5 ohms, which is ideal. Output power is up to 6 watts through Class A XLR balanced output and 3 watts through the single-ended quarter-inch output. And on screen, I'll put the various power outputs for different headphone impedances. The Conductor 3XP uses an ESS Sabre 9038 DAC chip. It has Bluetooth 5.0 input using Qualcomm CSR 8675 chip. And the Conductor 3XP also uses Burson's own design max current power supply, which is supposed to reduce noise and increase efficiency versus traditional designs. So the Conductor 3XP is a fairly compact device for all the features it packs in, especially with a Class A amp design. The entire chassis is made from metal and basically acts as a heatsink to dissipate the heat. You may know that Class A amplifier designs get very hot, and the surface of the Conductor does get really quite hot to touch, and in places actually almost too hot to touch. If you want to know more about amplifier design and what all the classes mean, I'm going to leave a link in the description to a fantastic video from CS Guitars. He explains it far better than I ever could. Right, let's take a look at the front panel of the device then, and from left to right we've got the power button here with an LED underneath it. Next up we have the balanced XLR output. We have a single-ended 6.35mm TRS output, and next up we've got a 3.5mm TRRS output, which also has a microphone input, so you could connect a headset to this with a 3.5mm TRRS connector. This is going to allow you to use the Conductor for your communications audio. The supplied 3.5mm TRRS to 2 times 3.5mm TRS adapter is going to let you connect your traditional PC headset. And Burson doesn't actually make any fuss about this being a gaming amp or anything like that, but with a feature like this, you could very easily use the Conductor 3XP as your gaming amp or DAC with a gaming headset. And it's also going to be really useful for those Teams meetings from when you're working from home using a headset. So anyone doing your Teams meetings with the Audeze GX, this is going to have you covered. Continuing on the front of the device, we have an LCD screen for displaying the current volume level. This also displays current input, source, and output modes and menu, and I haven't actually peeled the plastic off of it yet. I kind of feel like, well, this is only on loan, so I kind of feel like if I take the plastic off of this, it's almost like owning it, but oh, I may as well do it on camera, right? Oh, Okay, that's done. Just to the right of the screen, we have this volume knob, and this is a digital volume knob, which is stepped for fine control. This volume knob also doubles as a navigation control for the on-screen menu, so you can just turn it to navigate through the menu options and push it in to select the different menu options. And when you're not in the menu, pushing this in actually mutes the audio, so that is effectively your mute button. On the right-hand side, we've got the menu button. That allows you to enter the menu, and underneath this is the IR input for the remote control. Okay, so let's take a look at the rear of the device then. So starting from the top left, we have the Bluetooth antenna connection. So you just screw the antenna onto the back here. Underneath this, you have the power connector, which takes 24 volts DC at 3 amps through a barrel connector from the supplied power source. Next up, we have a USB-C connector, which is for connecting up to your PC or other USB source. And also we have two other digital inputs. So we've got a coaxial input as well as an optical Toslink connector as well. On the right-hand side, we have our outputs. So you've got stereo RCA outputs here, as well as stereo balanced outputs here. And you could use these for connected up to your powered speakers and use the device as a preamp. Okay, so let's just take a look at the menu features then. So entering the menu, you just press the menu button over on the right-hand side. And then we can scroll down through the different menu options using the volume control like so. Selecting the menu option, you can then push the volume button, which acts as your select button, and then you can slide through the various different options. So on here, this is going to allow you to select your different inputs. So from USB to Bluetooth to Toslink to coaxial. Now you can also change the inputs using the remote control. There's an input button that you can use just to do that. The next option down actually allows you to select the output. So whether that be headphone out or pre-out or DAC out. So headphone out is going to enable your headphone outputs at the front, somewhat obviously. Pre-out is going to enable the outputs at the rear, so you might want to connect those to your powered monitors, and then you can use the volume control on here to control the volume of your powered speakers. And then DAC out is just going to give you a line out straight from the back. My biggest gripe with this is that in order to make these changes, you have to come into the menu to do it. There is no button for outputs on the remote control, which is a bit of a shame, I think. What I would prefer to see is a button on the front to allow you to cycle through the outputs, or for the headphone out to be switched so that when you connect a headphone to it, it turns off the monitor outputs on the back, the line outputs on the back. But that's not what happens. If I have the line outs on the back enabled, if I connect my headphones, then nothing happens. I have to go into the menu, change it to headphone out before I can use it as a headphone amp. That's probably completely fine for people who are either going to use it as a preamp for a pair of speakers, or they're going to use it as a headphone amp. But for people like me who constantly switch between the two, that's a bit of a pain. Back into the menu, and the third option allows you to select between high and low gain. So high gain is going to be your normal for headphones and all that kind of stuff, but low gain is going to be better for your sensitive IEMs and things like that. Most of the time, I'm going to have that on high gain. Then next up, we have a feature to allow you to change the filters that are being used. This is not something that I really understand all that much myself. I'm sure some really serious audiophiles are going to find this quite interesting. Most people probably aren't, but it is good that it is there for the more serious audiophiles out there. And below this, you've also got the option to change a few other more technical things, which I'm not going to pretend to understand, but it's there if you want to do any more advanced tweaking. So a quick look at the remote control then. It's quite a compact little shape, and it's made entirely of aluminium. And we have a mute button at the top, the input source selector underneath this, and then you have volume up and down controls, and that's all you're going to get on this remote control. It would have actually been really nice to see an output selector on this instead of just an input selector, and maybe that's something that Burson can include with a future version. And like I expect most people will be doing, I've been using the Conductor 3XP with USB input. However, the Conductor 3XP is also able to receive connections via Bluetooth, so you can play audio from a wireless device such as a mobile phone or other portable player. To enable the Bluetooth connection, you either need to go into the menu or use the remote control to change the input device to Bluetooth. And what that then does is enables the Bluetooth radio so that you can then find it with your mobile device. You're then going to be able to see the Burson in your Bluetooth settings on your mobile phone. And as you can see, I am now connected using the LDAC codec, which is really, really good to see that it has got LDAC. At first, I didn't quite see the appeal of a desktop amp with a Bluetooth input, but once I used it a few times, a few applications for this came to mind. Firstly, if you're using the Conductor connected to speakers, you could then wirelessly stream to the device from your mobile. And I could also see myself using this on my desk at work. I'll have a good pair of headphones connected to this, and then I'll just be able to stream to it from my phone instead of it being connected to my work computer, which may or may not be locked down from installing apps such as Spotify or Tidal. Let's talk about the sound then, and I'm going to start out with a quote from Burson Audio's website, which says, "Some DAC amps claim to give you the front row experience in exchange for less soundstage. Others promise a 3D soundstage in trade for fewer details. The Conductor simply gives you everything in the recording without sugarcoating, the good and sometimes the ugly." So I think that is to say that Burson are aiming for a transparent reproduction of the sound with the Conductor 3XP. And actually, that's exactly what I expect from a solid-state source. If I want a coloured sound, I use a tube amp or choose a specific pair of headphones. Now, I do need to be frank, I don't have extensive experience of different source gear. My personal source is an O2 headphone amp with a Grace S-DAC. Both are known for being excellently transparent, at least at that price point. The differences between one headphone and the next indeed are vastly bigger than the differences between one solid-state source and another. I should also add that I am skeptical of claims from other audiophile publications as to the differences between source gear, and that, of course, could lead to bias on my part. With that said, it is very easy to be biased by such shiny and expensive equipment as this. And I do feel like I should absolutely expect to hear some magical difference between this and any other DAC or amp. So as with anything I review, I try to keep these potential biases in mind to keep myself objective. I report nothing but my own personal experience. I did all of my listening tests using lossless sources from my PC with the Conductor 3XP connected via USB. I used the following headphones: the Beyerdynamic DT880 600 ohm, the Beyerdynamic DT1990 Pro, the Hifi Sundara, and the Sennheiser HD6XX. Now, when using and listening to the Conductor 3XP, I'm really looking for just three key metrics, and that's power, audible noise and distortion, and coloration. When I say power, that is to say, does the amp have enough juice to drive the most power-hungry headphones without leading to a lack of dynamics and detail, particularly in the low end? And the answer to that is undoubtedly yes. Although one glance at the spec sheet was enough to tell you this already. Now, the most inefficient headphone I have here is the DT880 600 ohm. And this is the only headphone that I have that requires me to enable the high gain setting on my O2. On the Conductor 3XP, I had to turn up the volume to 60 to 70% on the high gain setting, which means that there's more than enough gain on offer here in the Conductor 3XP and plenty of headroom. Next up, I'm listening for audible noise or distortion qualities that don't exist on my O2, or for that matter, vice versa. And really, no change, but this really is entirely to be expected. There may very well be a measurable difference between these two amps, and I don't know about that, but measurable differences in source gear rarely, if ever, lead to actually audible differences. So that leaves coloration, and that is to say, is there an audible difference in the tonality or timbre, perhaps an increase in mid-bass, or an overall tilt warmer, darker, or brighter? And the answer is no. So does that mean that there are no audible differences between these two sources? Well, not necessarily. It could be that I don't have enough experience to tell the difference. It could be that my ears are not the right shade of gold. It could be that I do not have any headphones here that are resolving enough to tell the difference, or simply it could be that there is no audible difference between these two amps. I kind of want to say that the Burson was ever so slightly more lively on the whole, but I cannot be sure that this isn't just in my head. It takes a lot of concentration not to succumb to bias or placebo, and I'm certainly completely unsure that I could tell the difference in a blind test. I also cannot be sure that I got the volume matching between the two devices 100% exact. Louder volume always sounds better. Now, I did play around with the volume between the two devices, and whichever amp was louder at any one time, I definitely enjoyed that one more. So, rather than getting lost in some kind of circle of confusion, I'm going to call it. I personally cannot hear an audible difference between these two DAC amp combos, but I cannot say for certain that there isn't one or that you won't be able to tell the difference. Frankly, for my own personal requirements, no audible difference is actually the desired outcome. My O2 is pretty transparent, and that's the way I like it. I expect my sources to be transparent unless I specifically want a certain coloration. So for my own needs, the Conductor 3XP has actually passed the test, so that's a thumbs up as far as I'm concerned. So now we really need to talk about value and conclusion, and at $1,400 or about £1,400, the price seems to be about the same, the Burson Conductor 3XP is the single most expensive piece of audio equipment I've ever tried. And to be honest, this is a device that is way out of my personal price range. But whilst I couldn't see myself paying this much for the Conductor 3XP, I can see why some people would, especially as I know how much some more well-off audiophiles are prepared to pay for their gear. You're getting a DAC, an amp, and a preamp with a remote control, USB input, digital Toslink and coaxial inputs, as well as Bluetooth inputs, switchable gain for high sensitivity IEMs or headphones, choice of balanced or single-ended outputs, as well as a microphone input. The Conductor 3XP is certainly loaded with features, all in a rather compact and stylish full metal chassis that certainly has a really premium feel. I'm reminded of Burson Audio's tagline, a lavish musical experience. And that seems to be exactly what the Conductor 3XP delivers. Using the 3XP adds a certain luxury to the listening experience that is not unlike the tactile experience of listening to vinyl, and I know that there are a lot of people out there to which that will be really quite appealing. But I do have to say that personally, I'm not the target demographic. Frankly, my wallet just isn't fat enough, and therefore I feel unable, or at least financially unqualified, to make a real judgment on the value of this device. So to finish that up, I'm going to leave you to decide on the value of the Conductor 3XP. And I think that's going to be it for my review of the Burson Conductor 3X performance. If you like this video, then don't forget to leave a like, and if you haven't already, then please consider subscribing. And thank you very much to Burson for sending this over for me to check out. Thank you so much to the patrons, and if you want to support the channel, then check the links down in the description. You can also support the channel by commenting, liking, and sharing, and it all helps me out a lot more than you think. And as always, thank you so much for watching and making it all the way to the end, and until next time, have a good one.